Hello and welcome to Fun with Failure's TIFU. In light of the cancellation, wink, of the Area 51 raid, I want to give a tribute today to the events that happened in Roswell in 1947. As you all know, this is where alien spacecrafts were recovered, and thus starting the reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology. At Area 51, we have some embarrassingly funny stories that the Majestic 12 would want to cover up. So let's Naruto run past those naysayers and get started. Here we go.
He needs a tinfoil hat.
This happened not very long ago. I'm just now starting to come out of my humiliating shock. So, I was sitting at Mass, listening to the reading, when I felt a slight grumble in my stomach. Uh-oh. Gas. No biggie. This has happened before. I'll either wait for the song to let it go, or wait for the homily, or sermon for your Protestants, and sneak over to the bathroom, and take care of business. But alas, my body had other plans. We stood to chant the psalm, and the pressure is building. I'm starting to panic. I'm not sure if I can hold it. We finish the psalm, and the church goes to sit down. Just before I land on the pew, it happened. Now, it wasn't a quiet fart. It was one of those that lasted a few seconds, like a cheek rumbler, and the sound was amplified by the solid oak pew. It created a lovely echo off the walls, and it filled the church with what could be best described as Gabriel's trumpet. The church was quiet for a few seconds. Then the giggling started. I looked up to the altar, and the priest was physically trying not to laugh. The second reader ascended to the altar. At this point, there's no muffled laughter anymore, and then it happens again. The priest stands up at his chair, saying, I'm sorry, I can't. He runs off to the side entrance, and I could hear him laughing. At this point, I decided it was a total loss. I shamefully ducked out of the back of the church, ran to my car, and have been hiding in my house ever since. Hey, I say embrace it. If it happens accidentally, it happens. I did something like this before, but it wasn't at like a church event. It was me and my son was going into like a Rural King. We got into the entrance, and it's a pretty big open area by the checkouts. And there's like 4 or 5 cashiers standing up there. And as soon as we walked in the door, I accidentally let one rip, and it echoed really loud. My son's glare went straight toward me, and I was like, oh crap. It was so loud. There's no doubt that they heard me. Me and him just started busting out laughing, and we laughed the entire time we were in there. They didn't look at us. I don't know if they were too embarrassed, and I really didn't look up enough to know if they were laughing or giggling or staring at us. I was too embarrassed, but it was so funny, we just couldn't stop laughing. My son was born with a condition. It's where his chest is sunken in. His condition is so bad, he had only 2.5 inches between his sternum and his spine. His heart and lungs were bruised because of it. In December, he had a surgery to correct it, and they had to put 2 nickel bars in his chest to give the space to train his bones correctly. About 3 weeks after his surgery, a kid punched him and dislodged the bar. It wasn't a malicious punch. He didn't understand what he did. It was actually one of his friends. He was horrified when he learned that it hurt my son. We had to have another surgery to put the bar back in place. Well, the doctor cleared him for most activities. Just no skateboarding, bike riding, but now he can lift his backpack and hang out with his friends, but no contact sports. Unbeknownst to me, a kid in his class was bullying him all semester, and because my son was afraid of getting hit again, he just took it. Well, the evening he was cleared, he came to me and said,
Hey Dad, I'm cleared now. A kid has been bullying me and hitting me for months. Can I kick his ass?
Well, my son really isn't a fighter. He fought his brothers, but never anyone else, and he always got his ass kicked. So I figured it was just talk. But this is the first time I heard about bullying, and I was concerned. I could tell he was distressed, so I told him to knock him out. He just nodded and went to his room. Now, his older brother is tough as nails. He had a traumatic brain injury 2 years ago, and he missed a year of school, so he was in the same grade, coincidentally, as my son. I talked to him about it, and told him to handle it if he got in trouble. He told me that the kid would walk in every day and punch my son son in the head. I asked him why he allowed it to happen. He told me that he wanted his brother to toughen up, and he knew that once he got tired of getting hit, he would do something about it. Well, while I kind of agreed with his thinking, I instructed him to handle it without getting in trouble. The next morning, I took them both to school, then drove back home to get the younger daughter, because she had to go to a different school to start later. On the way to take her to school, my wife calls me.
Have you taken our daughter to school yet? Well, after you do, go pick up our son. He got in a fight.
I just assumed it was my oldest son. Imagine my surprise when I walked into the school office to see my younger son, with a grin on his face ear to ear. He was beaming. He pointed to the other kid, sitting in a chair holding an ice pack to his face.
I warned him.
I was so proud. He had walked into class, sat down, the kid popped him in the head like always. My older son got up to intervene, but before he could, my son decked the kid with one punch. He said the kid was bawling on the floor, that it was the best day of his life. Well, he did get suspended for 3 days. My son was quite shy at the time, and after this, he got a lot more confidence, and he gained a lot more friends. Plus, he never got bullied again. So there's a girl I work with, and we're really good friends. We're having lunch, and I'm making some ironic depression meme jokes, as most of my friends do. For some reason, I, in my unknowingly stupid way, get her to laugh by saying, "Hey, you know what's one letter away from sad? Dab! And promptly I did the deed. Also, I had this ability to cry on demand, so I stared stone cold at her with 2 tears falling down my face. She found it funny, extremely funny. So funny she dropped to the floor and started to laugh her ass off. After about 30 seconds, she started to grab her chest and cough. I asked her if she was okay, and she started wheezing and began to convulse a bit. I start freaking the out and thinking she's having a seizure, so I start to reach for the phone. At that exact second, my manager randomly decides to come in and sees this big guy towering over this poor little girl on the floor. I only managed to cut off her impending rage by saying, "I think she's having a seizure, please call 911. Fortunately, I was able to explain what happened after the ambulance came. It turns out she has asthma, and my joke caused a flare-up. She was waving her arms trying to tell me to get her inhaler. Oops. Well, thanks to the incredible support of Reddit and the hundreds of PMs urging me to ask her out, I did. And guess what? After promising that it most likely not result in another hospital trip, she said yes. We're going out for dinner. All right. Score. Guess I'm kind of obligated by the universe to go for it. This happened a week ago, but the awkwardness is still strong as ever. Stress has always gotten to me pretty easy, but the last few weeks have been really bad. Aside from the major examinations coming up, and the pressure to do well for my family, and the severe lack of sleep, sometimes less than 5 hours a night, and my wisdom teeth coming in, I had to have them removed in a few days. I was extremely anxious about it all. Altogether, I was having a pretty bad time coping with it all. So, being a horny teenager, I decided to find solace in my member, my best little buddy, my extra right arm. So, upon returning home, after getting my teeth removed, it seemed like a dream. So I laid down in the living room with my family to watch TV. I dozed off a couple of times, and was generally quite disoriented. Being both high off of anesthetics, and being tired is not a good combination. And after waking to feeling drowsier than ever, the upcoming exams dawned on me. Once again, especially since I've done next to no studies at the time. Not really caring to face the problems that troubled me, I decided to reunite with the dynamic duo, that being my right-hand man, my master for endorphins, and thus be able to forget all about it. So off I went, except I forgot one thing. I was still in the living room, in full view of my entire family. Somehow, my gassed-up, tired brain managed to convince me that I was not in fact facing my entire family, but comfortably laying in my bed in my own room in privacy, which was definitely not the case. I don't really understand how or why it happened. I began to notice puzzled eyes curiously seeming to look at me, with expressions that transitioned to shock. eventually to anger, to outrage, accompanied by intense giggling. I snapped out of it, of course, realizing the insanity of my actions, to behold the pure, unfiltered embarrassment I put myself into. I'm not going to talk about what happened next. I really don't want to relive the next few moments. My father is just disappointed. He hasn't talked to me much recently, and the long, awkward silences on the drives home are not too pleasant. My mother, on the other hand, says we should embrace our sexuality, which doesn't give me much comfort. She's potentially setting up a group therapy session as I write this. I'm starting to study as much as I can and pour into these books, so I have a good excuse to be alone and try to forget what happened. I think the most embarrassing thing I can remember from when I was a really little kid, not when I was a teenager. I remember when I was a little kid, I decided I was going to wake up real late at night, run around the house naked. I think I was like 6 or 7. I could have been 8. I'm not sure. It's been a long time ago. So I decided to do that. And unfortunately, I didn't realize how late in the morning it was because I was running around naked and I heard people get up from their beds. I was like, oh crap. So I ran to the kitchen, which the kitchen is where the front door was. So everyone had to filter through there to get out the door. So I decided I was going to hide. And I'm extremely self-conscious about having my clothes off. Even then, it was a really scary thing. So I ran and hid beside the freezer, and we had one of those huge box chest freezers, and it was nestled in beside the corner of the wall. So I nestled beside that and I knelt down on my knees, my little butt sticking out from behind the freezer, and I could kind of see the door as people were coming out of the door. I'm not sure if they saw me. I think they did. They didn't bring any attention to it, but that memory still kind of sticks with me because the two people I remember going by was my mom and my sister. I don't know if they saw me. I never asked, probably never will ask. I know it was a long time ago, and it's kind of funny to think about now. I've been self-employed as a confectioner for the past 2 years, and I recently started to try to get back into the workforce, into one of those fancy jobs at an office thingy. I should also mention that over the past 10 years, I've been using the same handle across multiple social media sites and platforms. It's by no means a secret identity, but it's not explicitly connected with my real name, or so I thought. I've been happily emailing a resume and my cover letters to many potential employers. Then I finally received an email from one I was excited about, and it said this: I have to say, when Titty Boobowitz appeared in my inbox, I had quite a chuckle. I had to figure out where it came from. Your Twitter profile is great. It has so much personality. I look forward to reviewing your application, and we'll be in touch with you shortly. Oops. My stomach fell right through my butt when I read that. And of course, the most recent thing I have tweeted was a stream of swear words. I tried to do damage control, but I don't have high expectations. Today, I finally received the follow-up. We're not moving on with the interview process email. Yay! Well, at least I didn't put attention to detail on my resume. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed these stories. Please be kind by liking and sharing with your friends. I want to give a big thanks to my supporters at Patreon. If you want to help this channel and become a patron, you will get advanced audio broadcast and downloads for as little as $1 a month. Or if that isn't for you, and you still want to support the channel, there's a link in the description for a one-time donation of any size. It will be greatly appreciated. Regardless, I'm glad to have you here, and I hope you enjoyed. Well, my wife tells me that it's only weather balloons that was in Roswell. Something about Project Mogul, some Russian spy gear. So, with that in mind, when you're out driving or doing anything, be careful and keep your eyes out so you don't get abducted or probed by one of those weather balloons. So, have a great day, and remember, have fun with your failures, or they'll have fun with you.
Oh, I need a drink.